You know that feeling when you set a goal, you're all fired up, but then life just
hmm
kind of gets in the way?
Oh, absolutely. Happens all the time.
Well, get this. Studies show people who actually track their habits
hmm
are apparently twice as likely to achieve things like weight loss.
Twice. Wow.
Twice. Yeah, it really makes you wonder, what is the actual magic behind just keeping tabs on what we do?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It suggests there's this powerful interplay between just being aware and actually doing the thing.
Right.
It's not just about, noting down what you did. It seems to be about actively engaging with the whole process.
Yeah, engaging in a way that fuels your motivation and helps you see where you're actually heading.
Exactly.
So, okay, in this deep dive, we're not just talking about the maybe mundane act of checking off boxes.
No, not at all.
We're diving into the psychological perks of using a habit tracker.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's way more to it than just getting stuff done.
Absolutely. I mean, logging a daily walk might seem super basic, right?
Ah.
But the consistency of doing that day in, day out, it can unlock some really significant self-awareness. And personal growth, too.
How so?
Well, it lets us spot patterns in our behavior, the good stuff, the bad stuff, areas where we could maybe improve, things that just normally fly under the radar.
Right, right. And that ties directly into what James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah, great book.
He frames tracking as this essential bridge. It connects putting in the work with actually seeing the results.
Which is so important because
Because often those small daily efforts, they don't give you that immediate buzz.
yeah,
And that can just kill your motivation.
exactly. But when you track it, suddenly that progress becomes visible. Those little wins start adding up, and that keeps you going.
It makes the abstract concrete, maybe.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, those big long-term goals can feel so far away.
Totally.
But seeing a streak build on your tracker, that gives you immediate positive feedback. It's like a little hit of instant gratification, but one that actually reinforces your commitment to the bigger picture.
I really like that analogy the source used from Chef Gabrielle Hamilton
Yeah.
about tasting ingredients while you cook.
I remember that.
To understand how they affect the final dish, habit tracking feels kind of similar, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Like each tracked action, each little step you note down gives you a small taste of progress. And over time, you see how all those individual ingredients build up to your larger goal.
That's a very insightful comparison. Yeah. Each habit we track is like an ingredient in the recipe for the life we're trying to build.
Right.
And by consciously tasting or tracking each one, we get a much clearer picture of what's working, what maybe isn't, and how it all fits together.
Okay, now, I know some people listening might be thinking, oh, great, another thing to feel guilty about if I miss a day.
That's a common concern for sure.
But what I'm gathering here is that the real value isn't about hitting some perfect, flawless record. It's more about just showing up consistently.
Right.
And getting a clearer view of your typical patterns so you can make, informed tweaks and keep nudging yourself towards those bigger goals.
And that brings up a really important point about how we even define progress. We're often taught to focus on the big milestones, the finish lines.
Yeah, the end result.
But habit tracking kind of gently shifts our focus to the daily journey itself. It encourages us to see that those seemingly small, consistent actions, that's the real engine of change, even if they don't feel huge in the moment.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to really unpack how this simple act of tracking can actually boost our mental well-being and ramp up our productivity.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Let's start with how it impacts our minds, our mental well-being.
Okay. So, moving on to mental well-being. One, maybe surprising benefit is how tracking helps automate those routine tasks, the ones that can really chip away at our mental energy, By setting up structured routines and then tracking if we stick to them, we actually free up valuable brain power for more creative stuff, more focused work.
Decision fatigue. I know that feeling.
Right.
That mental drain from making just too many choices, even tiny ones.
Right.
So by automating the basics through tracking, we're kind of conserving our mental energy for the big stuff.
Precisely. And there's some really cool neuroscience behind this. When we consistently repeat actions, it literally strengthens the neural pathways in a part of our brain called the basal ganglia.
Okay.
Think of it like creating well-worn trails in your brain. It's called neuroplasticity.
Right.
And it makes those habits more automatic over time. They require less conscious thought. You see this with professional chefs in a busy kitchen, right? Their routines are so systematic, it's all ingrained habit.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's like our brain develops an autopilot for those common tasks. And the source mentioned some MIT research saying that automating decisions can cut our cognitive load by like 40%.
40%. Yeah, it's huge.
That's a massive mental weight lifted.
It really is. Imagine getting almost half your mental processing power back just by having solid routines. There is that anecdote about the entrepreneur who cut their morning decisions down from 12 to just 3.
12.
Just in the morning.
Yeah. And they reclaimed so much mental energy and focus. It really shows the tangible impact.
12 decisions before the day even properly starts.
Yeah.
Sounds exhausting. So using a tracker to build these automated workflows isn't just about ticking tasks off. It's actively preserving our mental resources.
Exactly. And that Zapier study the source mentioned, professionals saving up to 5 hours a week just by streamlining repetitive tasks.
5 hours a week? That's almost a whole extra workday every month.
Think about the compounding effect of that saved time and energy. 5 hours a week adds up incredibly fast over a month or a year.
Yeah.
That's time you can reinvest in things that actually matter for your well-being.
Great.
Creative projects, focused work, or just downtime. Recharging.
Okay, so how can we actually use a habit tracker, practically speaking, to cut down on this decision fatigue in our own lives? Well, the source laid out some really practical ideas. One simple one is just using the tracker itself as a visual commitment device.
How does that work?
When you see the habits you've committed to, written down, laid out clearly, it acts as accountability. It kind of short-circuits that internal debate. Should I do it? Shouldn't I?
Ah, okay. So it's like making a promise to yourself, and the tracker is the reminder. Keeps you honest.
Pretty much. It keeps you aligned with what you intended to do.
What other strategies did it mention?
Another really effective one is habit stacking.
Habit stacking. Right.
Yeah, it's basically piggybacking a new habit onto one you already have. Instead of trying to create a new routine from scratch, you link it to something you already do automatically.
Oh, like deciding to stretch for 5 minutes right after I pour my morning coffee, that kind of thing.
Exactly like that. You leverage those existing brain pathways to make the new habits stick much more easily.
Clever.
The source also suggested consciously aiming to save just 5 decisions each day.
Only 5. Seems small.
It does seem small, but they pointed out that can add up to roughly 100 extra hours a month for creative thinking, focused work, whatever you need it for.
Wow, okay. That really reframes it. 5 tiny decisions can free up that much potential time. That's impressive.
Yeah, and the last tip was about just creating a clear list of priorities.
To minimize the unnecessary choices in the first place.
Exactly. If you know what really matters, it's easier to filter out the less important decisions and focus your energy where it counts. All these strategies, underpinned by tracking, really help declutter our minds.
Okay, so we're clearing mental space, cutting down stress. Now, let's pivot a bit. How does tracking habits actually boost our productivity? Because, let's be honest, getting more done is a big goal for many of us.
Right. Well, if we think about accomplishment, just visualizing our daily actions via a tracker can be incredibly motivating. The source pointed to a stat suggesting visual planning systems can boost task completion by up to 78%.
78%.
Whoa, that's a massive jump.
So just seeing what we plan to do visually makes us that much more likely to actually do it.
That seems to be the power of visual cues. When we can see our plans and then track our progress in real time, it sharpens focus, strengthens motivation. It takes those fuzzy intentions and makes them tangible, actionable.
And the source mentioned things like color-coded systems, like that day designer method, which apparently gets really high user ratings. And these visual elements actually trigger dopamine in our brains. That reinforces the behavior.
It's fascinating how simple visuals tap into our psychology, isn't it? Seeing a color change, a box get filled in, it's a small but satisfying reward.
Yeah.
Makes us want to repeat the action. And that 78% task completion stat really underlines how effective it is.
It's almost like that little animation you get in an app when you finish something. It gives you that little satisfaction boost. Makes you want to keep the streak going. But here it's driving actual productivity. And then there was this idea they call the check mark effect. I like the sound of that.
It's simple, but it's powerful. That little check mark, it gives you a tangible sense of accomplishment, even for a small task.
Right.
And those small wins are crucial. They build momentum, make it easier to keep going over the long run.
It's like building a positive feedback loop. Each little success fuels the next one. And that atomic habits research showing visual tracking speeds up habit adoption by 63%. That's huge.
Absolutely. By making the process visible, we shift focus. It's not just about the final outcome anymore. We also celebrate the daily steps getting us there.
Like the writer tracking daily word count example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even when the finished book feels miles away, seeing that daily progress is incredibly motivating. It reinforces the habit itself.
It's about breaking down those huge, maybe intimidating goals into smaller, manageable, and crucially trackable steps. And to tackle that feeling of invisible progress where you feel like you're working but not seeing results, the source introduced the 2-minute rule. How does that work again?
The 2-minute rule. It's brilliant for just overcoming inertia, getting started. The core idea is take the habit you want to start and scale it down to something that takes less than 2 minutes. So instead of exercise for 30 minutes, you start with put on my running shoes.
Okay, that just takes away all the overwhelm.
Right. The goal initially isn't to do a lot in those 2 minutes. It's just to start the behavior. And once you've started, often it's much easier to just keep going.
Makes sense.
These little micro actions, they seem tiny alone, but they really do compound into meaningful results over time.
It's that classic idea. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But the 2-minute rule makes that first step feel super easy,
Yeah.
non-threatening.
Exactly.
And there was even that case study, the app developer, who shipped projects 30% faster just by tracking daily progress,
Yeah.
leading to massive annual growth.
Yeah, that really highlights the power of compounding, both in habits and productivity. Focusing on those consistent daily improvements, no matter how small, the cumulative effect can be pretty extraordinary.
Okay, so tracking helps mental well-being by cutting decision fatigue, boost productivity by making progress visible. Let's dive a bit deeper now into some of the core psychological benefits overall.
All right, so digging deeper. At its core, consistently tracking habits really fosters significant personal growth.
How so?
By watching our daily actions closely, we start seeing patterns. Patterns that can inform real, meaningful change. This whole process naturally builds self-awareness and accountability,
Right.
which ultimately boosts our overall sense of well-being.
It's like holding up a mirror to our day-to-day, isn't it? You
Yeah.
get a clearer picture of where you're nailing it and where you might be, falling short of what you intended. And the source mentioned how tracking helps understand strengths and weaknesses. It cited that weight loss study where people logging meals were, 30% more likely to stick to their goals.
Yeah, that accountability piece seems incredibly powerful.
It really does.
The simple act of recording what you do holds you accountable in a way just intending to do something doesn't. It gives you objective data.
Right.
Makes it harder to ignore areas needing adjustment.
And we touched on this earlier, but the stress reduction from having structured routines, which tracking helps create, that seems like a huge psychological win.
Definitely. Knowing what you plan to do and when, because you're tracking it, it creates a sense of control, which is really valuable in a world that often feels unpredictable.
Yeah, totally.
The source referenced research showing professionals with structured plans manage stress better. By automating some decisions and actions through tracking, we free up that mental bandwidth, lessen the anxiety of feeling disorganized or overwhelmed.
It's like having a reliable roadmap for your day. Even if things go sideways, you have that structure to fall back on. And I really like the point about the dopamine effect, the boost from celebrating micro successes.
Yes, this is so crucial for keeping motivation going. Each time we track a completed habit, especially if we consciously acknowledge it, it triggers a little dopamine release. That's the brain's reward chemical. It reinforces the behavior and makes us want to do it again.
So even just ticking a box on a tracker gives that little feel-good hit that keeps the momentum going.
Exactly. The source even mentioned how mobile app notifications can mimic this, like a little digital pat on the back.
Yeah. And they introduced that 3-2-1 method. Can you break that down?
Yeah, the 3-2-1 method. It's a really simple, accessible way to start, basically. Identify 3 key actions you want to focus on, dedicate just 2 minutes to each, and use one tracker to monitor it all.
3 actions, 2 minutes each, 1 tracker.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is just to make starting feel less daunting, more manageable.
That sounds incredibly approachable. Like focusing on the really high-impact stuff without feeling like you have to change everything overnight.
Precisely. Start small, build momentum. Those initial micro successes, celebrated by tracking, create that positive feedback loop. It encourages you to keep going.
Okay, so we get the psychological why behind habit tracking benefits. Let's get practical now. How do we actually do this? How do we integrate it? What should we think about when starting?
Right, the practical side. Well, the first key step, as the source stressed, is picking the right method for you.
Digital or analog?
Exactly. Whether it's a fancy digital app or a good old paper planner, the key is choosing something that fits your lifestyle and your goals. There's no single best way.
It really comes down to what you'll actually use consistently, doesn't it?
Totally. If you love writing things down, a digital app might just get lost. If you value automation, maybe digital is the way to go.
Makes sense. And then choosing the habits themselves.
Yeah, that's important too. The source recommended prioritizing high-impact habits, the ones that give you the most bang for your buck towards your big goals.
Like a habit hierarchy, focusing on health, productivity, personal growth first.
Something like that. Instead of tracking every little thing, focus your energy on the habits that really move the needle. And they mentioned James Clear's never miss twice rule again.
Ah, yes. I like that one. Very forgiving.
It's a great principle. It accepts that life happens, you might miss a day. But the key is, don't miss 2 days in a row. It stops a small slip from derailing you completely. Get back on track quickly, keep the momentum going.
Progress over perfection. Love it. And comparing digital versus analog methods.
The source gave a quick rundown. Digital often excels for complex routines, automation. Think those automated workflows. Plus data analysis, reminders.
Okay.
Analog, on the other hand, can be great for focus, that tactile engagement, like using a really nice paper planner.
So digital for data and automation, analog for focus and touch. Got it. And there were some pro tips too.
Yeah, some good ones. For digital, maybe sync your tracking with other reviews, like your monthly finances, to see the bigger picture connection.
Oh, interesting.
For analog, put your tracker somewhere super visible. Bathroom mirror, phone home screen, constant visual cue.
Out of sight, out of mind, right. That makes sense.
Definitely. And they brought up habit stacking again with that example. Stretching while your morning coffee brews?
Right, linking the new habit to an existing one.
Exactly. It just makes the new habit feel more seamless, increases the chance it'll stick because it's riding on an existing pathway.
Okay, so practically, pick high-impact habits, choose a method you'll stick with, use the never miss twice rule, make it visible, and consider habit stacking. Sounds like a solid starting point.
It really is. It's about finding what works for you and building from there. Small, consistent steps, guided by tracking, that's the path to lasting change.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. To sort of wrap it all up, it feels like lasting change isn't about these huge dramatic shifts. It's more about understanding our daily patterns and consciously guiding them. And a habit tracker is like this personal guide, helping us navigate our own evolution.
And think about the cumulative power. The source cited research saying consistent tracking for just 1 month can lead to significant behavior change. And get this, 89% of users reported improved life satisfaction.
89%, that's huge. Really speaks to the impact.
It really does. And it brings us back to that James Clear quote you mentioned earlier.
You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Exactly. Taking account of our actions through tracking is building that system. It's creating your personal roadmap for success.
So a final thought, maybe, for everyone listening.
Yeah, consider this. Think about how even those tiny, seemingly insignificant check marks you make each day could add up over time. Imagine the potential for growth, for transformation. That lies in just consistently tracking a few key things. What could your life look like a year from now if you started today? It's Jay. Well, it's a pretty powerful question to ponder.